So, how about that Mueller investigation, huh?
How about the Mueller investigation? At this point, it is mind-blowing to me.
Wait a minute, guys. All right, it's the holidays. We're just trying to spend time with people that we love. Is it a good idea to talk about politics at the dinner table?
Yeah.
It is.
Where else are you supposed to talk about them?
Because the whole idea is I respect and love everyone at the dinner table. I should be in a safe environment to talk about anything and not be in a scenario where as soon as I say something, you're going to launch at me and say, well, then you must be a racist and a sexist or a snowflake.
How about if we can get through an entire dinner without the risk of being called a snowflake or a racist or a bigot? Everywhere I go these days, people are talking politics. Why can't the dinner table be the one place where we can talk about other things and I can feel safe and I can feel warm and I don't have to argue?
The reason you can't avoid it is because it's so serious. It's critical at this point.
But Savannah, do you avoid it?
I would like to avoid it because in a family conversation, you never know. You've got that aunt, that uncle who is going to derail the conversation, and it feels like politics can be the fastest way to do so, and it makes the dinner table not a safe space anymore.
Ugly, right?
I don't know. I think this is where you learn how to talk about politics. This is the beginning. This is the first step. So when you're growing up and you're hearing the different adults discussing and arguing, and you're like, that's a point, you start to realize that there's going to be differences of opinions between adults.
Why don't you want to say kids? It's the crazy uncle who isn't learning anything.
And everybody's got a crazy uncle.
I'm the crazy uncle in my family.
I also think with family, you feel like they're always going to love you, so sometimes you're willing to push the envelope on how mean you're going to get because it's not somebody that you're just going to write off on Twitter or not have to, you know what I mean? Like you feel like they're always going to be in your life, so no matter how much you push the envelope, they're going to love you back.
But
so
isn't
it might get really
that the
ugly.
right place then to ask provocative questions and say provocative things because they will love you?
So I know where you guys stand. You don't think it's a good idea to discuss politics at the dinner table, and you guys disagree. You think that it's healthy to do it at the dinner table. Could you see a scenario in which you would think it would be fruitful to engage over Christmas dinner, Hanukkah, any holiday?
Yes. And that is that so many of the ways in which we express our opinions to each other these days are done in the absence of context, often on social media. Going through the rigor of having to say it in front of people you love and have them maybe come over to your side on an argument or at least see it through your perspective.
When you think about how in this day and age we are always on our phones and everything, when you have the time to be with each other with how important politics have become in our everyday life and with how much they're permeating every moment that for us, of course, at work, but just in general, even out on the street, to be able to not share something like that with the people you love means you're excluding a whole chunk of things that you're thinking about from being able to bring it to the people that you care most about.
Or the other side, to take your side of the argument, I'm a mom of 3 little kids. I have family members and friends that are in different economic situations than I'm in. And when you think about people's political views, their station in life impacts their views. It's really nice in some scenarios. Don't bring that to the dinner table.
I'm curious to hear if you guys think that money is something that's off limits. That should we discuss anything that has to do with finances or money at the dinner table?
That I'm clearer on the fact that I think that's tough. And remember, a lot of couples have problems because they don't speak about their finances. So I don't know if the holiday table is exactly the right place to do it, but it is a tough conversation. So you definitely should be able to have that conversation with the people closest to you at some point.
We're going to move completely away from all that stuff and talk about relationships. Ooh, how do we talk about relationships at the dinner table?
I think that's all we should be talking about at the dinner table. No politics. Let's talk about the juicy stuff. Who's dating who? When are you guys having kids? Yeah, I think I'm the crazy uncle that would definitely be asking.
Oh, you're
the prying uncle?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You've been outed.
I want to know everything about, well, and they're very, very young, but I'm still like, so, do you have a boyfriend?
They're like 6 years old.
Yeah.
No, I'll say as a non-married person who has a boyfriend, when I've been at family functions and don't have a boyfriend and they're like, you know, what's with that? Like, did that last boyfriend break up with you? You're like, please, that's the last thing that I want to talk about. And then when you are in a relationship, like the prying uncle does not need to know the specifics of my situation right now. You know what I mean?
I'm in a relationship. I have a girlfriend that I love, and I need my family to help convince her to, like, at some point get married, you know? So it's like my rallying the troops.
That sounds like a personal problem.
But that's an easier topic for you, right?
Because there's no downside.
You are handsome. You are successful. I'm sure you're dating a great girl. If somebody is in a different situation and they feel like showing up to a holiday is Judgment Day, especially with people of a different generation, especially if you're a young woman and that grandma might think, well, a man completes you. Then you start to avoid that subject.
I grew up, my family's Indian, my wife's Jewish, I grew up amongst Italians, so it's like your situation. All we ever talked about was families, and people asked those sorts of questions that some people in society would find prying. But I think we've come full circle, as you said, with young people and social media feeling more free to talk about their love lives and their private lives and their social lives, and that's probably not a terrible thing.
But if they're doing that on social media, they should at least do it at the dinner table. These are the people that will support you when the breakups happen, or when things are going good, when things are going bad. They're next to you.
Well, I hope everyone feels better equipped to have your holiday dinners now.
I'm ready to eat.
Yeah, me too. We'll have to follow up and see how everyone's dinner time went. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.